Yes, it's true, I'm not good at a one-night stand. But I still need love, cause I'm just a man. These nights never seem to go to plan. I don't want you to leave, will you hold my hand? Oh, won't you stay with me? Cause you're all I need. This ain't love, it's clear to see. But darling, stay with me. Why am I so emotional?
A little bit more recent with our song to start the show today. We love to look back on this day in music history, and we don't go all that far back for Sam Smith's Stay With Me. But did you notice at all in that song? It's got some I Won't Back Down vibes from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers back in the late 80s. You can kind of hear it in there just a wee bit, can't you? And it was on this day in 2015 that Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were given a songwriting credit on that song by Sam Smith, Stay With Me, because of the similarities between the two songs, Stay With Me and I Won't Back Down. Happened on this day in 2015. This day is the 27th of January, 2025. It's a Monday morning, and welcome to the program. Thank you very much for being here. We have made it. It's the final week of January. February, we'll get Groundhog Day and a short month, and then it's March. And in March, hope springs, emphasis on the springs, eternal. A big, fat, a special good morning this morning to our 9 a.m.ers. I know you're out there. I know that there are those of you who tune into this show from the moment it begins and stay with us right through until the moment the show ends at 1. Very grateful for you, our 9 a.m.ers, even if you just start here and then go somewhere else. But we have new 9 a.m.ers among us today, because today we begin the 4-hour journey, not just on 570 News Radio, but on Rogers TV. Rogers TV Cable 20 has opted to carry now, instead of just 2 hours of the show. And I've been telling them for years, you're missing the good. Every minute of this show is so ding-dang important. Anyway, welcome aboard. Rogers TV now on from 9 until 1 every day. You look great. And thanks for being with us and being a 9 a.m.er on the show. Let's get right to the phones, because the phone line's open the minute we begin the show every day. Alan is here. Alan, good morning.
It's nice to see your smiling face.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Turn off your TV.
Yeah,
I'm better heard than seen, Alan.
I watch you from 10 till 12, and you're dancing around in that studio. And
I do get a little animated sometimes, yes. Yes, I do.
Anyways, what I want to talk about is our useless premier. What has Ford done in the years that he's been premier?
Successfully won re-election.
That's right. He hasn't done nothing else. all he does is lie.
Well, he's given you $200, Alan.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's a bribe, so we'll vote for him in the coming election.
I agree with that, yes.
And he's going to set this out in February, cold. And people should think, what has he done? And he hasn't done nothing. He just lies about the road from Kitchener to Guelph, how he's going to redo that, and two-way go from Toronto, and all this other, and 413, which is a good highway, good number, 413. I don't think that'll ever get built. Anyways, I spent some time in the hospital just a week ago, and my wife was in there too. And the nurses were just running around like crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible when you see it firsthand, isn't it?
They'd come into your room and they want to scan your arm bracelet, and the scanners don't work. So they have to find another one that'll work. And that happened numerous times. They bring their equipment in. Oh, it's not working.
I get
it.
it.
Blood pressure machine wasn't working.
Most importantly, Alan, how are you and your wife feeling?
Well, let's put it this way. She went in on a Wednesday, and I thought it would be a good thing to do and come in on a Friday, and I did. And my son picked me up from the apartment, and I could hardly walk.
Oh, goodness.
But anyways, right now I've got heart failure, and I've got a friend attached to me. And it's not a good little friend, but it's a friend.
I understand where you're coming from. And I hope, for your sake then, that you can get rid of that friend at some point. Nice to hear your voice this morning. And yes, we are going to an early election. Why? Because it's an opportunistic time for the Ontario Premier to seek a stronger mandate. He's got a huge majority right now. How much stronger a mandate do you need?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
All right, we got to get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning. Number 1, it is a fireworks week in Waterloo with the Lunar New Year landing on Wednesday. The city is encouraging residents to be mindful of how fireworks can impact neighbors and wildlife. If planning to use fireworks, consider this: notifying your neighbors in advance, because the noise can disturb pets, children, those with different work schedules, or individuals who are sensitive to loud sounds. Fireworks are permitted in Waterloo on Wednesday from dusk until 11 p.m. Number 2, Wilmot Council will be back at the budget today after 7 hours of discussion at its last meeting about 2 weeks ago. Council whittled the proposed tax increase down from 51% to 47%. Wow, their work is done now, only 47%. Among the motions to be considered at tonight's meeting is a proposal to cut cost of living pay increases for Wilmot Township staff. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning: no children were harmed in this call to police, which came in Friday after a witness reported having seen a car speeding through a parking lot with its passenger door open, a child hanging out of the vehicle calling for help. Upon investigation, police say it was actually an adult woman who had been in the car and that she exited that car safely. Number 4, an Ontario MP says the federal Liberals are not allowing him to run for the party leadership. Chandra Arya, the MP for Nepean up there by Ottawa, was the first to announce his candidacy, but a spokesperson for the federal Liberal Party says a candidate can be removed from the race if they are deemed unfit for office. No specifics, though, have been provided on Arya's case. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning: world leaders and Holocaust survivors are gathered in Poland today to mark the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in attendance, said it's time for the world to be reminded of what never again means. It is estimated that more than 1 million people, mostly Jews, were killed at Auschwitz, a notorious Nazi extermination camp during World War II. And how coincidental is it that it is our privilege on this show today, just about an hour from now at 10:30, we will have a 101-year-old war veteran from Kitchener who fought the Nazis in World War II and has since been knighted. John New will be in studio with us this morning at 10:30. I'm really looking forward to that conversation and so much more as we are underway for another day here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are, without question, the most interactive radio program anywhere in the region. The moment we begin our show together at 9 every morning, the phone lines are open and you can have your say on any of the issues we discuss, or every day between noon and 1 with our open line Talkback Hour. Today is Rant or Rave edition. We do that every Monday. But regardless, when we begin the show, phone lines at 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715 are open to you. And Kevin is with us on the phone this morning. Good morning, Kevin.
Hi, good morning, Mike. Regarding the Liberal MP, Mr. Arya, that was removed, and I was watching the news last night, and he's kind of not happy and he's kind of offended that, he's been removed. I mean, first of all, he knows that one of the first criteria to run as a liberal leader or any party's leader or become a prime minister is being bilingual. And he said in his interview that he doesn't speak any French at all.
I mean, listen, Mark Carney's French ain't great either.
Well, let me tell you, but at least, if you know the criteria, I mean, why would you even put yourself in the race? And then why would you get upset? I mean, unless if he has a lot of self-confidence and think he can do anything. But, if you're running, you want to run for a whole country, man. You have to know that you're qualified. I cannot go to Grand River Hospital without the degree and I'll say, I want to become a doctor here. I have to accept that job is for the people with qualification. And if they say no to me, I shouldn't get upset. I shouldn't get offended. Oh, they didn't hire me because of my race, because of my look, or things like that. You are not qualified.
Okay, Kevin, listen, I get where you're coming from. First of all, I think it's probably a little bit easier, might just be me, but I think it's a little bit easier to learn French than it is easier to learn how to do open heart surgery. So I'll just put that out there for consideration. And then I might also add, I think you asked the $1 million question, and it's a rhetorical one. Why would you put your name forward if you knew you would be disqualified? Well, because then your name gets in the news. And perhaps Mr. Arya is hoping to have his name in the news for other reasons, like winning his seat again in Nepean when we go to the federal polls. I'm not sure, but there is an old saying in the news business that no news is bad news, or no press is bad press. If you get your name in the news, that's a good thing. I remember actually a long-time local politician who I was once reaching out to for comment about something I was writing. We never could connect. But after the fact, he said, that's okay. I don't mind that you're quoting me or using my name in your piece as long as you spell it properly. In other words, no press is bad press. Stay with the phones this morning. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if you could hear me.
I sure can.
I don't know if I'm flogging a dead horse with my issue here. I drive a lot. I go up and down Fisher-Hallman by Highland Road. And why is it that the government or gas stations can change gas prices 5 times a day? When I worked at the liquor store, you weren't allowed to do anything like that. And if we did, we'd be hung.
Okay, I mean, maybe not hung, but it was against the rules, I suppose, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, Tom, I get you. And tell you what, don't ever worry about flogging dead horses on this show, okay? Because if my last breath is amalgamation in this chair, I will die a happy man. Like, let's just come on with your coming on when it comes to 7 different municipalities under one region, 2-tier municipal government. What a waste of resources. What a lack of efficiency. So if you want to flog the gas prices horse, you go right ahead and do that, good sir. I also have never understood it. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I could go back so many times over my life in this business that we've covered stories about gas prices reaching a certain point, going over a certain point, how there were going to be boycotts at this station or that station. And here we are continuing to complain about the same thing. I wish I knew. I'll never forget this scene. When I was in Barbados many, many moons ago, we left the resort for a little tour. We're on the bus, and there was this long snaking lineup out of a gas station. And everyone's like, what's going on over there? Why all the lineup for gas? And the tour guide said, that's because the gas price is going up tomorrow. The government told us that it's going up. That's how it worked in Barbados. You get informed in advance, hey, the price is going up this much tomorrow. Just to tie a bow on it, Tom, how about this? I pulled into a gas station near my home not too long ago, and while I was filling, they changed the price. So I went in, and it said $1.49 whatever, and then I noticed on the pump, as I was finishing my fill, it was already changed to 150. So the big sign hadn't changed. I'm pulling in, and I double-checked as I left. It still said 149 whatever on the sign outside, but the pumps had already been recalibrated to 150. As I pulled in, it cost me an extra 55 cents to fill up that day, all right? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of your 9:30 update in the 570 News Center. Let's stay with the phones this morning. Boy, you want to talk? You must be like me on Mondays. It's been 48 hours, and now you got to get it out of your system. Paul, good morning.
Amalgamation sucks.
Settle down.
Simple.
No, it doesn't. Paul, stop.
Listen.
You listen first.
Why don't we eliminate every single municipal?
Oh my gosh! Here you go again. Because
government in Ontario,
Paul,
and make it the city of Ontario.
Okay, hang on. First of all, it's all about
Prove
scale.
me wrong.
It's all about scale. We don't need a 15 million person single government, but we could probably get away with, I don't know, a million too. How come you, who lives in an amalgamated city, are so cranky about this?
Back to Gulf, Preston, and
I know you do, but it's not. 50 years, Paul. 50 years and everything is fine in Cambridge. Everything.
No,
except for you, cranky people in Preston. That's the problem.
Hey. Anybody who's been around knows.
I've been around.
They don't say Cambridge. They say I'm from Preston. I'm from Heston.
I know.
I'm from Gulf. Okay? So if we're going to start this whole amalgamation thing, where do we stop?
I just told you. 1 million, maybe 1 million too. Toronto's doing just fine, for the record. 25 councillors. We have 59 elected officials locally. 59, Paul. It's ridiculous.
Get rid of all those regional councillors, and it'd be a good start.
So you want just 7 different municipalities here instead?
Yes.
Or do you want 9, because Cambridge becomes Preston, Galt, and Hespeler again?
Yeah, here, tell me this.
Okay.
Where does Guelph stand?
About 20 minutes to our east.
So do they become part of Waterloo region?
In my Waterloo region, they sure as hell do.
What about Woodstock?
No, I don't want Woodstock. I don't like going that way.
Okay, how about London? Now
you know what?
You can have your
yeah, exactly. There you go. Stop it. Woodstock. I better not say that. I was about to. I love you, Woodstock. Listen, I got my arms stretched as far as I can. I'm going to wrap them around. I'm going to give everybody in Waterloo region a big amalgamated hug. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. An issue that has been subject of much conversation on this show over the past couple of weeks. People who have been elected to municipal office who choose to leave that office before their term is up so that they can seek higher office. We have that happening already in our region with a couple of regional councillors and a public school board trustee who, midway through their first terms, have decided they would like to run in the upcoming provincial election. I have stated my position on this as being twofold. One is, I think that the person looking to climb the political ladder, so to speak, should have to resign their seat, try for the other level of government. If unsuccessful, then come back and ask the voters by way of a by-election if they should be returned to that original seat. A resignation as opposed to just a leave of absence. And the other thing that I want to be careful of is that we're not being too dismissive of the good work that can be done locally, because so often we hear, I can't get done at this level what I want to get done. And that, to me, sounds a little bit dismissive of the important work that can be done municipally. As I was talking about this the other day, a currently elected municipal councillor reached out and said, hey, I see it differently, and I'd like to share how I see this issue. And we always make room for different opinions on this show. So we welcome Hans Roach, Ward 3 councillor in Waterloo, to the program. Hans, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How are you? It's good to talk to you. It's usually in a hockey setting that I'm speaking to you, but I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here, no matter if it's a hockey setting or this setting or just when I casually run into you on the street. It's always a good conversation, and I appreciated you reaching out to express that you see this a little bit differently. I just explained my position. What's yours, Hans?
Well, Mike, kind of like your job is, I guess you could call me a devil's advocate at certain times, but I really enjoy reading your opinion pieces. And the one that I read about 10 days ago kind of took me aback, but just to offer a different opinion. But I love that you're keeping us politicians humble, at least trying to. But Mike, I can appreciate the sentiment behind the idea of the whole ladder climbing. It is kind of rooted in the desire for accountability and ensuring that elected officials remain focused on their responsibilities. However, when we look at I guess you would call it the practical realities of Canada's system, like resigning before running isn't always the most effective or fair approach. Canada's elections, can be called at any time. It's impractical, I think, personally, Mike, to expect officials to resign before running. Without knowing the precise timing of elections, resigning could leave that official potentially out of both their current role and the opportunity for higher office. And Mike, I think, Canada is a unique country. Canada is not the States. We're not the 51st state yet, Mike. But we don't have fixed election dates, and elections can be called unexpectedly. So I think that if an official wants to run for higher office, it could lead to frequent vacancies. I mean, look at the run for the Liberal leader right now. These are people that are solely focused on a higher office. In Canada, I think that's impractical.
Do you feel as though the voters who elected these people in the first place, though, Hans, get done a bit of a disservice when that person who they elected and put their faith in decides to leave the office they sought to vote for?
Mike, it's not always the same job. Yeah, as you know, we have different levels of government, and municipal, provincial, federal. There are different things going on. We've got a situation right now federally where some people may think that our immigration system's broken, our taxation, our carbon taxes is through the roof, and a person, maybe to use your analogy of ladder climbing, I think this person is just stepping up. They're rising to the occasion. And there's been a lot of precedent for this. You have a gentleman on today at 11:30, David Drewe. Talk to him about the people that have done this. Canada is a very flexible nation, and it's worked with many respected leaders at all levels of government. So I think that municipally, we have mechanisms with our city staff, deputy officials, representatives, that ensure that the services and representation for our constituents are not disrupted. Seeking higher office, I think, is just really about amplifying the constituents' needs.
I certainly agree with the idea. Look, I've got nothing against ambition, first and foremost. I've had it myself in my career, and I think anybody with ambition, I think it's terrific. We should have that wanna every day to get up and go and maybe do better than we did the day before, maybe seek a better or higher position. And I hope we can keep good people in it. If they're doing a good job locally, I hear where you're coming from, Hans. They could probably do as good, if not a better, a job provincially, federally, etc. As somebody who is currently elected municipally, are you by any chance laying the groundwork here, Hans, that maybe someday you too will seek a higher level of office?
That's a possibility, Mike. I thought of it, and I've actually been approached before, but maybe you've inspired me. And talking about ladder climb, maybe you can hold that ladder for me.
I'd be glad to.
But we do. To your point, Mike, we do need good people, and we need people that want to step up. This is being in the public face. It's not an easy job, but you know it. I mean, people approach us. Sometimes not the most stable people approach us, and there's been over the last few years, I think 3 or 4 issues with regard to safety and security, with the job that we have. So, as I said, we need good people to step up. And sometimes people, Mike, aren't in a position to just resign their job to take on this position. It's kind of like if I resigned every time I explored a role, Tanya, my wife, would be the first to ask if I'm asking to empty my bank account. I don't think people would appreciate me just walking away. I mean, it's expensive. We're talking about cost efficiency too. Resignations trigger a by-election. There's going to be burdening taxpayers with unnecessary costs. Running for office while still serving, I think it can avoid this expense. Respecting public resources.
Hans, I really appreciate you reaching out to be a part of this conversation today. Thanks very much for being here.
Hey, great. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Hans Roach, Ward 3 councillor in Waterloo, sharing his perspective, which, as you hear, differs from mine when it comes to somebody elected to one level of office seeking a higher level of office. And as I said at the outset, look, I acknowledge that not only do I share an opinion, I often, probably more often than not, share it passionately. I don't just do it off the cuff. I spend time thinking about it. I try to make my points clearly. And yeah, if I feel as though it should be one way, I'm going to tell you the way that I think it should be. But that does not mean I close my ears to the other side. And so we get to hear Hans's side of this morning as someone who is currently elected to office. Couple of things. First, you heard Hans mention David Drewe, who will be with us at 11:30 this morning, as he is every Monday at 11:30. And yes, we will be talking about those who seek higher office from their current municipal positions. The other thing is, and Hans alludes to the difficulty being in a job that is public-facing today, as politicians are. I might just raise my hand and say, I hear you, because this job is also public-facing, and when people don't like what you say or even how you look, you get to hear about that in public. I will also add, overwhelmingly, like 99.98% of interactions I have are positive. And you know what? Might even be 100. Online stuff I don't even count, because whatever. In person, in public, it's all. I love the feedback. Whether we agree or we disagree, we can have conversations on this show. And so, just to bring that back, over the years, this gets difficult for me, because I'm not trying to make this personal. I have nothing against those who have chosen to be ambitious and seek a higher level of office. There's nothing wrong with that. I admire the ambition. It's just I see it as I want to see a resignation so that people aren't left without a voice. And then those same people can decide if they want to put you back into the office. And I want to make sure we're not losing the importance of municipal politics and what it can accomplish. But I see these folks at events. I see these folks at the coffee shop. I see these folks at sporting events. I love them. I'm not, it's not personal. It's just my opinion here. And it gets a little bit sticky sometimes, but I have to make it clear how I feel, so you know where I stand on things. And I give you the chance to tell me where you stand. So you heard from Hans, you've heard from me multiple times. What do you think of people climbing the political ladder? Let me know on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I think that municipally, we have mechanisms with our city staff, deputy officials, representatives that ensure that the services and representation for our constituents are not disrupted. Yeah, seeking higher office, I think, is just really about amplifying the constituents' needs.
Hans Roach is a Ward 3 councillor in the city of Waterloo. Joins us to talk about municipal councillors or school board trustees seeking a higher level of office. And there's no doubt. I mean, you can't align the election timing, right? Fixed municipally every 4 years. The next municipal election is not until 2026. And if a provincial election gets called early or a federal election happens, whatever, you can't possibly align the two. So you might choose to leave the office you're in to seek another office. Let's go to the phones, hear from you on this. Rory, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Not too shabby for a Monday morning, I suppose.
Attaboy.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, look, I know we've talked about it before, and, I think one thing that maybe I didn't add that I think is important is, when you or I, or not that we're looking for, we've got the best gigs we've got now, but, typically when people are looking for a new job, Mike, I think they're doing it in private. They don't necessarily tell their current employer that they're looking for a new gig. Now, of course, in public life, you don't have that luxury. Your signs are all over the place. Your face is all over the place. And, you don't necessarily have the same luxuries as you or I or maybe the commoner might have. And so I think that's important to think about in this discussion. And I know I've said it before, timing will never be perfect. And I know there is some argument there around whether or not somebody can get something done. I know municipally, Mike, certainly over the last short period of time, all I've heard is, well, we need to approve all this stuff because the OLT is just going to come in and basically set the record straight. So I actually appreciate that some of these councillors are going to be going up to a provincial level. I just hope they make the changes that make municipal work more significant than what it already is today, Mike.
Rory, appreciate the call and understand where you're coming from. And I've wondered that myself insofar as if I were looking for another job, you think I'd tell 570 News Radio? Heck no. And by the way, I'm not looking for another job. However, Rory makes a good point. And I wonder if, though, we have to kind of waive that expectation or understanding if we seek public office. It doesn't work the same in public office as it does for those who work in the private sector. Just another thought around that. But I think Rory makes a good point. Phil sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. Says, is local politics a standing room seat on the bus because I'll be getting off shortly? Like you, I personally know many of the players. Does there need to be a contract for elected terms? I know many want to turf out federal Liberals and provincial Tories, but times are scary to keep out incompetent governments and leaders. But, so I get it, Phil. What you're saying is we've got good people locally, and they may be very interested in getting rid of a provincial or federal government that they currently don't like. They want to use their experience to get into another level of office to do just that. Maybe. Again, I know it's expensive, but a by-election, and this is me, I don't like spending the money, but nobody said democracy would be inexpensive. I think we should have a by-election, and I really want to make sure that we do not, under any circumstances, be too dismissive of the work that can be done at the municipal political level. Lots of great stuff happens here. And I don't want us to forget that when we hear people say, I can't get done what I wanted to get done at the local office. I want to make sure that we emphasize what can be done from that local office. And maybe, just maybe, this is another reason why or example of people getting more and more cynical around politics. Well, I voted for them just 2 years ago, and now they're going to leave. This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Couple minutes away from 10, your update in the 570 News Center. Let's continue the conversation about seeking higher office. Jason on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I will first say I'll plead the fifth on this opinion, on my opinion on lower tiered politicians seeking higher tiered political status. But I just want to piggyback on what you said, about municipal politics. We do a lot of stuff. We actually are the closest to the constituents. We are the first and most accessible politicians, I believe, either federal, provincial, and or regional. And so, the great thing about municipal politics is we don't have to play party lines. I may, in my personal life, adhere to a certain, whether it's left, center, or right, but when it comes to planning and when it comes to decisions that are made by council, I believe that it's in my best interest and the city's best interest to not play left, center, or right. I believe in doing what's right for the city, and I think that's why I think municipal politics is the best place for people to be, and it can be a starter for some, but at the end of the day, for myself personally, I love doing what I do and trying to make our city better, and also at the same time, municipal politicians, we have a little bit of more accessibility with our provincial and federal counterparts. And so if there are things that need to be advocated for, we have the ability to do so from this level as well. Maybe we can't implement change that we necessarily want to see, but we can definitely throw a little bit of influence behind some of the decisions that they make.
Jason, really appreciate the call. Another Ward 3 councillor, this in Kitchener, Jason Deneau, joining the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, you may recall a couple of years back now, maybe somewhere between 1 and 2, there was a cyber incident that affected our Waterloo Region District School Board. We never really learned a whole lot about it, or whether or not the school had to pay some sort of ransom on that breach of their cybersecurity. But a report last year from a cybersecurity company in Britain that looked at threats in education globally found that in lower education, the median payment in a ransomware attack was $6.6 million US. It's about $4.4 million US for higher education organizations. So based on that, you can use that average for the public school board here in the region, $6.6 million US. Again, that's not saying what our school board paid out, if anything at all, but that's what the cybersecurity firm in Britain learned the average was at lower education. When you get into post-secondary, colleges, universities, etc., the ransom payments go down from there. Dr. Ali Digantana is a professor and Canada Research Chair in Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence at the University of Guelph and joins our program this morning. Ali, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you make of education, boards of education, being under threat from cyber attacks?
Well, education and another sector, agri-food, are currently the weakest industries that we have from cybersecurity point of view in Canada. There's technically for most of these school boards, schools, there is no security measurement in place whatsoever. They are fully relying on the vendors, and their selection of the vendor is not based on security at all. It's mostly based on the features that are offered and the pricing, of course, right? And unfortunately, there is no standard whatsoever, security standard, in terms of that can help the school boards choosing the vendors or identifying which vendor or which tool is better from security point of view to acquire or to work with. So education sector is becoming one of those very low-hanging fruits, right, for the attackers. Usually, you have mentioned about the report from the Britain, right, about the payments. And, sometimes when I talk with the school boards, I'm telling them that you either invest that amount on improving your cybersecurity or you need to pay it in ransomware. That's your choice all the time, right?
That makes perfect sense. What's at stake here, Ali? I mean, student personal information, I guess, is the biggest piece of this.
True. A lot, right? So other than like personal information, addresses, even health information like allergies, right? And sometimes, not all the time, if we need to do the full investigation, but sometimes that the parents are using their credit cards, to make purchases, like paying for the food at the school, those could be leaked as well through these attacks, right? So what I'm trying to say is like a wide range of information which are very valuable to the attacker. For example, if I know that a kid has an allergy to whatever, he or she cannot change that throughout his or her lifetime, right? So these are very valuable information, and that can be used by two groups of criminals. One are cyber criminals, which are looking mostly for financial information, so knowing address, knowing information about the name and family name of the parents, etc., would help them when they want to recover the information and make the identity thefts. But in addition to that, there is another group of criminals interested on the child incident materials. And one way that they can build trust to the children is to tell them about these private information that supposedly those who are not in a trust loop should not know about them, right? And that, to me, is a bigger risk, because, for example, even you see in this attack, the company is offering like an identity monitoring for all the parents that have been impacted. But when we ask them about, so how about who is going to educate these children that is starting tomorrow, anyone in the street probably would know your allergies, would know your parents' name, your address, how they are going to protect themselves. There is nothing is offered at that point.
What can school boards do to better protect themselves against these cyber threats?
First and foremost, conduct a vulnerability or security assessment. That's the minimum thing, right? Cyber security is a risk, and similar to other risks, should be under the radar of school boards. Every time that the school board members are meeting, one of the items in their agenda should be looking at the latest cybersecurity reports, how vulnerable they are, right? I mean, I have worked with some school boards, especially the ones that is local to us. And it's a pity, there's like even the basic cybersecurity measures like regular updating of the systems are not being applied. Set aside having multi-factor authentication, limiting access. There are a lot of systems that they have the access to them are shared, right? There is shared username and passwords between the different users, which is completely unacceptable these days from security point of view, right? So I would say the first step is to conduct a vulnerability or security risk assessment, right? And the second is school boards need to keep getting, similar to other boards that we have in the country, at least every 2 times a year, a report of this current state of cybersecurity from all the schools, right? And then from there, they can start either accepting, transferring, or addressing, mitigating the risk. That's what everyone is doing, right? And unfortunately, in the education sector, they're closing their eyes. And when I talk to them, they are like, we are not that good targets. If you are not protected, if you are not secured, regardless of your business, you would be a good target for the attackers.
Yeah, and it sounds like, because you said earlier, the school boards are kind of low-hanging fruit. The attackers know this. They've found the vulnerability, and it sounds like they're ahead of the security right now.
Absolutely, right. When I was talking to the people, I am telling them that cyber criminals have been optimizing their operation for years. So they are going to rank all their targets, and they are going to optimize their time going after the easier targets, right? And currently, school boards are among the easiest one that they can monetize. As I mentioned, the other sector is agri-food, but not relevant to this conversation.
Ali, it's very interesting information. Thank you very much for joining the show this morning.
It's great to be here. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Dr. Ali Digantana, a professor and Canada Research Chair in Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence at the University of Guelph. 2 primary areas of concern when it comes to cyber threats in Canada: agri-food and education. And it sounds like, and isn't this sadly too often the case, where the cyber criminals are one step ahead of the cyber security? In this case, though, it sounds like they are several steps ahead, primarily of lower tiers of education. And again, I'll just take you to that report that shows the average payout globally for lower tier education systems, so public Catholic school boards, etc., primary and elementary school students, is $6.6 million US. As our guest from the University of Guelph says, do you want to pay that out in a ransom, or do you want to spend that, invest that in updating or upgrading your cybersecurity? Take your pick. For post-secondary institutions, the average payout $4.4 million. Once they are breached, their cybersecurity is breached. And it doesn't sound like we are investing enough in that cybersecurity, making our boards of education low-hanging fruit when it comes to cyber criminals. And we know already that our public school board here in the region has been breached, right? A number of retired teachers were very concerned about that. Didn't learn if any ransom was paid or how that was all settled, but we know the breach occurred. There's one in Wellington County as well. The Toronto District School Board has been hit, and so it goes. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Cyber criminals have been optimizing their operation for years. So they are going to rank all their targets, and they are going to optimize their time going after the easier targets, right? And currently, school boards are among the easiest ones that they can monetize.
Dr. Ali Digantana, who is a professor and Canada Research Chair in Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence at the University of Guelph, joins us to talk about that very thing, cybersecurity, when it comes to our boards of education. And experts are telling us that cyber attacks on schools are likely to increase unless those schools decide to invest in more cybersecurity as opposed to paying out the ransoms, which, according to a report from the UK, estimates globally the average paid by school boards is $6.6 million US. That's the ransom if they are breached, their cybersecurity is breached. And at post-secondary institutions, it's $4.4 million US. That's the average globally when one's cybersecurity is breached. And look, we know that I wonder how much attention we pay to it ourselves, quite frankly. I mean, how many times do we read the stories that, you know, the most common passwords are password or 123456 or things like that, right? I'm not sure how much attention we pay to protecting our own electronic data, but nonetheless, there are many institutions that we place our faith in, assuming that they are looking after the cybersecurity, and it doesn't appear as though that is necessarily the case when it comes to boards of education. The agri-food industry and the education industry are the two most vulnerable to cyber attacks today. In keeping with the education theme, a front page story on today's Waterloo Region Record follows up on a story from several months ago about a school trip that was planned for students at Waterloo Collegiate that was suddenly canceled, and the students were left wondering why the heck they weren't able to go to Washington for their American history class. I mean, what better place could you think of other than the U.S. Capitol as a place to visit when you're studying American history? And this goes back to the previous school year when what a great time it would have been to be there, right? During an election year. So lots of questions were raised around that. And ultimately, an answer has been determined. But from where I'm sitting, I don't think it should take this much to get an answer. So in fairness, every student that had paid a deposit for this $1,250 trip was refunded their money, so nobody's out any money, but they are denied the experience of visiting Washington, the White House, the Smithsonian, you name it, as part of this American history trip. And that's where some students were asking, well, why did this happen? Why are we being denied this opportunity? And as it turns out, it seems as though the planners of this outing for the students did not, and I quote, address plans to help cover the cost of the trip for any student who might not be able to afford the $1,250 price tag. So because there wasn't accommodation being made for those who might want to go but could not afford it, it's been canceled entirely. And what concerns me about this is that in order to obtain this information, the Waterloo Region Record had to submit a Freedom of Information request to get into all of the documents that lead to the conclusion. And then, some students are saying this doesn't seem equitable to us at all. I mean, if we can save and do the fundraising or whatever needs to be done in order to afford this trip, why are we being denied the opportunity to take in American history in the U.S. Capitol? It's a tough spot, and I can understand why the students are upset. But more than anything, I think as a community, it just continues to concern me that our local newspaper has to file a Freedom of Information request in order to obtain the documents to get the answer as to why a school trip was canceled. Why can't the school itself explain that to the students? Why can't the board more broadly, if it's a board policy, explain the policy publicly? And the story states that when a comment from the board or an interview with the board was requested, it was declined. I've said this before recently. I'll say it again today. I think some institutions, school boards chief among them, have forgotten that they are public institutions, publicly elected boards of trustees, and even the people working within the boards are public servants. They are paid for by our tax dollars. They are responsive to and accountable to the public. And the fact that you have to file Freedom of Information requests to get answers and then interview requests get declined, it just doesn't cut it. And I really hope we can find a way to reverse what I describe, or I would consider, a disturbing trend. I can take you back to 2016 if you want to go there, when Donald Trump was elected the first time and said he didn't need the mainstream media. He would just communicate everything through his own social media channels, et cetera, et cetera. How upset were we then? Where's the accountability? Why won't he answer questions from the media? We're getting the exact same thing right now from our public school board. It's got to change. It's got to change. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Email from Pete to Mike at 570news.com says the conversation about cyber threats to schools was too broad. Many schools across the province have made investments in cybersecurity where they can, but the problem is funding. And the broad brush that your guest just painted school boards with is both insulting and uneducated to those of us in the trenches just trying to keep our heads above water. Let's quickly go to the phones. Bailey, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Mike?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Well, thanks. I just wanted to comment on speaking about the trip to Washington for those kids with the Waterloo Region District School Board. It's really disappointing to hear that they can't go. And I think it's really disappointing that the school board missed the mark on an opportunity to educate kids about caring for others who might not be able to afford the trip to go. I was one of those kids growing up that didn't have the money to go on trips. And it was so meaningful when my classmates were like, yeah, let's fundraise together so we can all go on some of these trips. And it taught us a lot, I think. And I just think it's really important that our kids have that opportunity. And it's so disappointing that our educators who are responsible for this can't even hold up their bargain. And it's really sad. And I'm also really concerned about the Freedom Information request because it's public accountability. We're the public sector. We're supposed to be very transparent with the people that we serve and work with every day.
Bailey, very well said. I got to run to get to the news center. I'm a little late, but could not have said that better myself. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, my next guest just told me I don't have to call him sir. I don't have to genuflect. But I think I should be doing both of those things now that I have officially in studio with me a knight. The French Legion of Honor has been awarded to John New, a World War II veteran, at the tender age of 101. And Mr. New joins us in studio this morning. Sir, good morning.
Good morning.
I know you said I don't have to call you that, but I feel like it's appropriate in this case. How do you feel today? It turns out that we are here having this conversation on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. How do you feel today?
I had the occasion where I was posted in Germany to be aware of the fact that a British tank regiment had overrun Belsen concentration camp. And some of our people went up there because there were 5 Canadian soldiers that Germans had put in that camp because the war was near an end, and they didn't want to be caught with some Allied prisoners. So they parked them there. I have mixed feelings about things. When I entered the service at age 19, I was one of the most ignorant boys that existed. I knew nothing about foreign intrigue, wars, nothing. In the 4 years I was in the Army, particularly at Belsen, I grew up very fast. Very fast. Namely, having been a Roman Catholic at the time, I could not imagine human beings treating other human beings the way they were treated at Belsen. And as I found out later, Auschwitz, Dachau, and the other concentration camps. It shook me. And I had what is now defined as post-traumatic distress syndrome. I didn't know I was ill. I didn't know that a few weeks after Belsen's visit, I found myself in Oldenburg in Germany, northern Germany, walking around a lamppost. And I didn't know why I got there, and what I was doing there, nothing. So I knew there was something wrong with me. They nearly sent me home, but I was taken under care by a lieutenant from Newfoundland, whose family name is Kitchen.
Isn't that perfect?
Yeah.
What was your role when you enlisted? What did you sign up for?
No. A buddy and I went to join the Air Force.
Okay.
In Hamilton. He got in. I didn't. I didn't because I had a varicose vein in my left leg, which I still have. He is no longer with us. Do I thank my varicose vein? Well, maybe I do. I don't know.
What did you end up doing then, if not the Air Force?
I joined the Army. I figured I couldn't dig a trench to dive into when the raid was on while I was in the Navy, and I couldn't swim, so I joined the Army, which was a godsend, really. I had my basic training in Chatham, Ontario. I went to England. No, they made me a Lance Corporal. And by the way, that is the lowest form of life in the Army, as a Lance Corporal. You get it from both sides, if you know what I mean.
I think I do.
And after that, I got to England, finished my advanced training. We were posted in Aldershot, a large group of men. They had a parade in the morning in which the group from A to the end of M were sent to North Africa. And I, being the first one on the end, beginning with N, we 4 of us were posted to Canadian Section General Headquarters, 2nd Echelon, Headquarters 21 Army Group. Long thing, eh? So it turns out that I was posted. When you report to a new unit, to a new posting, you have to go to the orderly room. There you were signed in officially as a member of that unit. The chap who interviewed us, the four of us, first he was a short regimental sergeant major who had a very broad Scottish accent. He said, "Can you write your name, laddie?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He addressed everybody, sir. "Yes, sir." So I wrote, he said, "You're too good to be general duty. We'll make you a clerk." So I was posted to Central Registry at the second echelon. Central Registry was the office for all ingoing and outgoing mail from headquarters to the various regiments in the field, and we had couriers going to regiments in the field, picking up mail, bringing it in. The mail came into our office. We opened it all. We read everything. We purported, which is another way of saying, recorded every bit of mail that came in. We knew everything that happened to a man, whether he was charged with an incident or not, whether he went A.W. loose. Yes, everything we knew about him. And there were some interesting things. A very high-ranking officer was given. He was almost demoted for what he did. Apparently, he wanted to get the medal for North Africa, but he had to be in North Africa for a time. So he ordered a plane somewhere in southern Europe to fly him to North Africa and back again so he could apply for this medal. They didn't give it to him. Oh, was I happy to read that. But that's the sort of thing that you get in Central Registry.
We are in conversation this morning with 101-year-old John New, who has just been awarded the Legion of Honor from France. It will be bestowed upon him officially at a ceremony on Wednesday. It will continue the conversation. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just by way of background, the Legion of Honor is France's highest order of merit. It was established by Napoleon Bonaparte back in 1802, and this Legion of Honor has just been bestowed upon John New, a 101-year-old World War II veteran who makes his home in Kitchener. And Mr. New, you were telling me during that commercial break, there's a story behind your arrival in our fine city. How did you come to arrive in Kitchener?
My father, being the oldest of the children of my grandfather, recognized when he was just out of his teens that although he was going to inherit the piece of land on which the family has existed, the other boys learned a trade. Now, when he looked around, he realized that there was only so much land available, and people would procreate as they will do when they're... Anyway, so he heard that there's land in Canada. So he and my mother borrowed some money, and they came to Canada, leaving my sister and I with my mother's parents, my mother's grandfather and grandmother. They came to Canada, and they went by train out west, and they looked at the land available. Land, as far as the eye could see. And he said to my mother, "This is no place for us. We couldn't manage the amount of land available." So they came to Kitchener because some people from our village lived in Kitchener at that time. So they parked themselves here and they got jobs at the Kaufman Rubber Company, both of them. And as time went on, they saved enough money to bring me and my sister, who was 2 years younger than I, to Canada. They were to come with my aunt, my mother's sister, and her babe in arms, who is still with us today. So my sister unfortunately died a week before we were to leave. I was to come with my aunt and her babe in arms. So we were left behind. My aunt went on to the boat in northern Germany. After the funeral, my grandfather put me on a train to northern Germany. So we passed through about 3 countries. I was all by myself. Can you imagine doing that today?
No, I cannot. But look how it all worked out. You go, you serve, and now awarded the Legion of Honor from France. How does that make you feel? What does that mean to you?
Quite honestly, Mike, I don't think I deserve this medal. I know that countries that award medals do it for a reason. They want to show people that they recognize that we put our life on the line. And indeed, that's what happened. I can tell you there were approximately 6 occasions where I should have died. And I missed out on it. Why? I don't know. I used to think, well, maybe I'm scheduled for something, wishful thinking. Yes, it happened. I had 2 marriages, and I think I made 2 women happy. Did I make you happy, dear?
John's wife, Sybil, is in studio with us. Is it difficult for you to think back on those 4 years when you were in the Army?
It's really difficult for me. Let me just say, when I was discharged, I kept nothing of my Army regalia. I wanted no more of wars at all. It was difficult. I had grown up, as I said before, very quickly to appreciate that human beings are human beings. We recently saw a clip on television about studying chimpanzees. They too, these are our ancient ancestors, they too clumped in as a group together and they went to war against another group of chimpanzees. And I said to Sibylle, my wife, see, we inherited all this. And we're never going to get rid of it. What the war taught me, though, Mike, is that we're human beings. We all are motivated by the same things. When I look at Israel and the Gaza situation, the Israelis are no different than we are. They are also human beings. They also respond to things. They do things which are not acceptable with other human beings. Inasmuch as I had a great sympathy for the Hebrews, the ancient Hebrews, and the present Jewish nation, and all the people who were murdered in camps. A great sympathy for them. But I think to myself, why do we repeat this?
I think a lot of us have been asking that question. Before I let you go, and I'll remind folks again, you will have an official ceremony this Wednesday in Cambridge to have this medal, and then I guess you can wear it because you carry it in your pocket right now. But it's beautiful. You too, sir, look incredible 101 years old. Do you have any advice on living such a long and prosperous life?
Someone asked Queen Elizabeth when she reached the age of 90, "Your Majesty, to what do you credit your longevity?" And she said, "Keep breathing." I have no secret. I have no secret. One thing I have, my father, as I told you, studied French for 4 years, self-study. Maybe I inherited him. I began to read. When I came to this country and went to school here and I learned to read, we did not live too far from the library. We lived on Scott Street. The library was on Queen Street. So the library is a place I haunted. Books, to this day, are still kind of another world for me.
Sir, congratulations on your Legion of Honor medal. It is very deserving, and thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
John New joining us in studio here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, what a treat it was to have Sir John New in studio with us this morning, 101-year-old veteran who has been awarded the French Legion of Honor, the highest order of merit that France can bestow upon another. You're probably wondering, Farwell, why didn't you tell us where that ceremony is happening on Wednesday? Well, I didn't do that deliberately because it is by invitation only, and sadly those invitations have been filled. But it was great to have John in studio with us this morning to share some of his experiences and how it feels to have had that medal bestowed upon him. Let's get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then, as we do every Monday at 11, This Week in Music History is coming your way on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers. Things change when you gain just a wee bit of knowledge. I was just a wee lad when the Boomtown Rats came out with that song, and I just thought, well, who doesn't like Mondays? Little naive kid that I was. That song and its story will factor into This Week in Music History, our Monday morning feature with musicologist Brian Allison, who joins the show. Brian, good morning.
Hi, Mike.
Let's start on this very day, the 27th of January, 1973, and a little story about Sweet.
We're going way back to 1973. Mike and I were just babes in diapers, probably. At least I was.
I was also.
So Sweet, or at the time, I think they may have been still known as The Sweet, were an up-and-coming glam rock band, and the glam rock thing was taken off in the UK. They were booked for a show in Scotland at the Grand Hall in Kilmarnock, Scotland, which is a working-class area of Scotland at the time. These guys showed up on stage to play some music, wearing some fairly androgynous clothes, wearing makeup. Again, very much the glam thing of the 70s was coming out at that time. And they proceeded to be hurled with beer bottles, which basically sent them from the stage running. That was the end of the show. But life gives way to art, and it inspired a song written by the Sweet, which became arguably their best-known song, which was Ballroom Blitz. And if you listen to the lyrics of Ballroom Blitz, there's definitely some references to that event in it. Went on to become a huge number one hit, definitely a number one in Canada, number two in the UK, was number one, top 10 for sure globally, I think just about in every country. And Sweet rode the wave of success on that single, and we're around for many, many years to come. I think there may still be an incarnation of Sweet around, although I don't believe any of the original members are still alive. I think they've all passed away by now. So,
it's a tough way to get your start or your inspiration, but it certainly did lead to success with Ballroom Blitz, didn't it?
It worked for them. It definitely worked for them. Yeah, again, they rode that song to the heights of success. I think it was revived, or it was brought up again a few years later in some movies. I know one of the Wayne's World movies featured a remake of Ballroom Blitz. So, yeah, it still surfaces from time to time. Big song for sure in the early 70s.
It was also this week in music history, Brian, that we were gifted We Are the World.
That's right. January 28th, 1985. Music's biggest stars assembled in Los Angeles to record We Are the World. So that was clearly a response to the Band-Aid project, which happened in December of the previous year in the UK, where the song Do They Know It's Christmas came out. Bob Geldof was obviously the one that spearheaded that, led to Live Aid. But this was the U.S.'s response to this. And it came on the eve of, I believe it was the American Music Awards or the Grammy Awards. I'm not recalling which one it was. And it was very, very quick. They just gathered all these artists. They had more or less 12 to 14 hours in the studio. It was done overnight, so they started late at night, went right through to the small hours of the morning, and brought in, pretty much a who's who of American popular music in 1985. Tina Turner, Diana Ross, Kenny Rogers, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Bruce Springsteen, Paul Simon. Huge number of artists that participated in that. And it went on, of course, to raise more than $50 million for the humanitarian fund for Ethiopian relief. So that was an incredible event. There's a great documentary on one of the networks right now, which documents the creation of that song and the recording of it. And there's quite a bit of footage on it of them actually recording this song in the studio. So it's remarkable to see that. And it doesn't feel like, I don't know about for you, I was 15 years old when it came out, but it doesn't feel like it's that old. It seems like it's just an event sort of just in the rearview mirror, but we're going back, 40 years now to USA for Africa, when We Are the World.
Yeah, it's incredible how time flies. And, that takes me back also. I'll never forget the album. It was one of the first I had purchased because I was just getting into albums at the time. And it was the compilation Rock 81. And on that compilation was the song by the Boomtown Rats, I Don't Like Mondays. And little did I know as a young lad the meaning behind the song. But we learned it this week in music history.
And it's kind of been a well-kept secret. I mean, people know about it, the fans of the Boomtown Rats, for sure. Bob Geldof has spoken about it publicly. But for a long time, when the song first came out, so we're talking January 29th, 1979 was the date of the incident, and a lot of people didn't know. This was really one of the first school shootings. At least it was the first one to receive any kind of press, particularly around this song. So it comes from an incident. A 16-year-old young lady, her name was Brenda Spencer. She went on a shooting spree on a Monday morning from her apartment, which was situated across from San Diego's Glover Cleveland Elementary School. She killed 2 people and injured 9 others, so it was a significant shooting. When she was brought in for questioning, and she was asked why she committed this act, she said very flatly, "I don't like Mondays." That was her response. I'm assuming that was published somewhere, and Bob Geldof got a hold of the story and took it back to his writing table and created this song, which became I Don't Like Mondays by the Boomtown Rats. It was a huge hit for them. Still is basically the Boomtown Rats calling card. I know they had lots of other hits in the UK and some that charted in the US, but that was certainly their big song. And it stemmed from this, terrible school shooting incident. And again, if you go back and listen to the lyrics now, you may pull some different things from the song that you didn't realize were there before, because it's pretty dark.
It certainly is. I still love the song, but yes, it takes on a much darker meaning, to be sure, once you know the story behind it. Brian Allison joins us every Monday morning, 11 o'clock, for This Week in Music History, and there is still more to come, including the story of a mysterious disappearance and the debut, the first time that we got to know a pop star that became one of the biggest music has ever known. Plus, that song that somebody else didn't want became a hit for somebody else. Stay with us as This Week in Music History continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Monday morning at 11 o'clock, musicologist Brian Allison joins us on the show for a little look back at This Week in Music History. And you know, Brian, at first I thought this couldn't possibly be the case because this guy became such a megastar. But I think maybe when I put my mind to it, and thanks to you, I am, he was always shy, wasn't he?
We're talking about Prince.
We are indeed.
Yeah. What happened was, so January 26, 1980, which again, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but we're going back a long, long way here. We're going back 45 years. Prince made his national television debut on American Bandstand. I mean, what could be a bigger venue at that time than American Bandstand? And he played a couple of songs which were very, very well received. He was pretty confident in his band, with his band at that time. Traditionally, after the band has played, Dick Clark will come out and do an interview, with his guests, just to get to know them a little bit. And Prince was either really, and people do know Prince to be a very shy person. He's quite reserved, but he did not go over well in the interview portion of the program. People thought he was aloof. He was a bit dismissive even in some of the questions that Dick Clark asked him. You could sort of sense the frustration in Dick Clark, thinking to himself, well, I'm giving this kid, his first appearance on national TV, and he's kind of blowing me off here. He's not really engaging too much. Prince's PR team was mortified. And again, it just seemed to be not well received by the public. I think people were a little bit confused. But again, we have to remember, Prince was 19 years old at the time, and just a kid coming up. And again, very shy personality. I don't think he was all that comfortable in the interview portion of the program. It didn't go over well. It took his career a little while to sort of recover from that initial response that the public got of him as this kind of, aloof, and almost, I think people perceived him as rude.
It probably did. And you're right. It took me a moment to think back because he became such a megastar, but he was always very reserved. There's no question about it. I love me a good mystery. I was unaware of the mystery of Richie Edwards until you learned me about it on This Week in Music History, Brian.
It's still a story that is receiving a lot of press, more so in the UK. So the Manic Street Preachers are a band that came out of England in the 90s. And they were sort of at the peak of their popularity when one of their key members, Richie Edwards, disappeared. And he literally disappeared. He has never been seen since February 1st, 1995, is now presumed to be dead, but walked away. They found his car. They found some personal belongings, nothing else. You may remember a press incident. I'm not sure, Mike, if you'll recall this, but Richie had a lot of incidents in the press, again, particularly in England, but he had been doing an interview with a person, one of the press from the UK. While the interview was being conducted, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a razor blade and carved the number 4 real into his arm quite deeply. There are photos of it if you Google it. And this is kind of one of the news stories that broke the Manic Street Preachers in England for sure. But then a couple of years later, he just walked away. He disappeared. Nobody has seen from him since. And I think it was in November 2008 when they finally declared that he was dead because he's never been seen. So they're not sure if it was a suicide, if he was abducted, if he just decided in his right mind to go off the radar and not communicate with anybody again. But Richie Edwards, February 1st, 1994, disappeared in 1995. We've never seen him since. It's a sad story.
It certainly is that. I think you and I touched on disco last week, never my favorite genre. And wouldn't you know, on This Week in Music History, disco takes over for rock and roll at the top of the charts.
I love that story. So January 31st, 1976. So ABBA knocks Queen out of the number one spot on the singles chart with Mamma Mia. It knocked out Bohemian Rhapsody, which had enjoyed 9 weeks at the top of the charts. And Mamma Mia comes along and finally dethrones Queen, puts that single to number 2. The funniest part about the story is, if you remember the song Mamma Mia, or the Queen song Bohemian Rhapsody, one of the lyrics in it is, "Oh, Mamma Mia, let me go." And Mamma Mia, the song, subsequently did let Bohemian Rhapsody go down to number 2 and gradually disappeared from the charts. So there's a little irony for you.
It certainly is. I think it's similar irony here as we look at one of the birthdays coming up this week. On Saturday, Mike Campbell of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers will turn 75. But it's not so much the birthday as this ironic story from music history.
It's my favorite Mike Campbell / Tom Petty story. I think it's a terrific story. And it's one of those ones that people don't really know about. They know the song, but they don't know the history behind it. So this is a great opportunity to share it. So sometime around the late 80s, Mike Campbell, who was, of course, the lead guitar player for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, he was Tom's chief songwriting collaborator, co-wrote many of Petty's major hits, a key member of the band, went to Tom during a recording session and said, "Hey, I got this great song. I think maybe we should record this." And Tom sat down and he listened to Mike's demo of the song and turned to him at the end and said, quote, "That's a crap song." So Mike kind of went away with his tail between his legs thinking, okay, well, he can't please the boss every single time, but he really liked the song. He thought it had potential. He took it to his friend Don Henley, obviously from the Eagles, but was in his own solo career at that point, and said, "Don, what do you think about this song?" And Don said, "I like it. Let's record it." The song went on to be a major number one hit, definitely put Don Henley on the map in terms of his solo career. That song was The Boys of Summer. That's the song that Tom Petty thought was a crap song. So he has subsequently, in years later, apologized to Mike Campbell and said in many interviews, "Yeah, I think I got that one wrong. I probably should have taken a second listen to it." One of my favorite songs of all time. And,
yours and mine both.
It's fantastic. And to think of Tom turning, I just laugh when I think of Tom turning to Mike in the studio and saying, "Yeah, that's a crap song. We're not recording that."
And Don Henley probably should still send maybe royalties to Tom Petty's estate. I'm not sure. Quickly, before we let you go, there's just too much of a coincidence in this one, too. Tomorrow is the day in music history that Jefferson Airplane fans will remember forever.
For sure, January the 28th. So 2016, two of the founding members of Jefferson Airplane, Signe Tolley Anderson and Paul Kantner, they were literally the co-founders of Jefferson Airplane back in the 60s, died on the exact same day in separate events, both at the age of 74, within about 90 minutes of each other. Huge coincidence. I remember when this happened, the story coming out and seeing the lead that was Paul Kantner had passed away, and then a couple hours later it was like Signe Tolley Anderson died, and it was like, well, this can't be right. It must be one of them died and the other one's commenting on one of the first one's death. Then it turned out it was true. They had both literally died within 90 minutes of each other, separate parts of the country, not related, wasn't an accident or anything that took them both out. Both band members dying on the exact same day at the same age within an hour of each other. So
absolutely
pretty huge coincidence there.
Incredible stuff. And another great walk down a musical memory lane. Brian, as always, appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again in a week.
Can't wait, Mike. See you next Monday.
You betcha. Brian Allison is a musicologist, joins us every Monday, 11 o'clock for This Week in Music History. Some great stories today on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Monday mornings are made for some regular features from this week in music history into Drewe's views and, among other things, coming up with David Drewe, the Liberal leadership race, and Elon Musk. Oh, I can't wait to hear this. David Drewe joins us next here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? I haven't seen hide nor shaggy head of that boy in 4 years. But you'd know him if you met him. Played harmonica like the cat lost his balls. Yep, Crazy Dave. Had a toothy smile as big as my hand. Always chewed on a toothpick or a long blade of grass, drank from the bottle, rolled the worst cigarettes, was impervious to insect bites. It's one of the best damn tree-planting highballers east of Prince George.
I got to get in touch with Scott Wicken. He is a terrific spoken word artist, and he provides for us the inspiration for Drewe's Views every Monday morning, 11:30, with David Drewe, owner of Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies.
I have an epilogue to your music history week.
You do?
Yes, I do.
I'd love it.
I am a huge Bob Geldof fan. I think Vegetarians of Love is one of the best albums ever made, but in terms of I Don't Like Mondays, everything dude said was right, but he wasn't quite clear on how Bob Geldof heard about this. Bob Geldof and the Boomtown Rats were touring the U.S. when this happened, and he was sitting in a radio station promoting his show, and the teletype, that's the reference to the teletype, starts going off. And so he's sitting in the studio promoting his show and looking over at this and just reading the click-throughs on the updates, and all of this is coming through. And he's like, yeah, and I'm promoting this stupid show. It was just this surreality to it that really stuck with him.
I forgot about his, being in the radio station at the time of the news coming through. And listen, I've been around, I hate to say it, long enough that indeed we did have a teletype machine. I mean, it was an older, tiny station, took a while to update, but my very first station in the newsroom was a machine just like that.
The only thing that I find weird about that is I'm picturing that being a bit of a noisy machine to have in a news studio.
Yes,
okay.
It absolutely was. But how far we have come. All right, let's dive into the topics du jour, because there are many, including the fact that Donald Trump amuses you. What, like a clown? He's funny how, David?
Going all Joe Pesci on me. His first day in office, when he was signing all those executive orders, it was just hilarious. I think you're going to have to find the sound clips. Oh, that's big too. Oh, and here we are ending all diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's huge. And he just went through a series of 70s, and it was 7 or 8 of these, and every one of them was like, ooh, that's big too. And just doing this little sales pitch on it was hilarious, but it's like it's nonfiction, so it's really not that funny. But it's totally right out of a sitcom. You could picture Lloyd Bridges sitting behind the Oval Office desk. Ooh, that's huge too. Eilbaum, Mandelbaum.
Great Seinfeld reference.
Yes, but oh boy, it was just so hilarious because it was such a parody of everything you'd expect from the head of state of the world's only superpower. But it was real. And so you just keep having to sit back and go, I can't laugh at this. I have to laugh at this, I guess, because if I don't, I don't know how I'm going to sleep at night. I'm just going to be curled up in a fetal position. You know?
Don Cameron always used to say, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Bingo.
There you go. All right, let's move on to Ruby Dalla running for the Liberal leadership. I like the idea that there is not only a butter tart challenge for me, but a raisin-free butter tart challenge for me.
Okay, so this is a 2-part challenge, and the first part is really, really easy because she's not a front runner for the race. So I'm expecting you can get her on for an interview.
Okay.
When she was on Parliament Hill, she was hilariously renowned for always referring to herself as I, Dr. Ruby Dalla. She's a chiropractor is one of her gigs. She's also a model, an actress, an entrepreneur.
What?
Yeah. But she always had this thing, and it came across as so discordant and arrogant. I, Dr. Ruby Dalla, feel that. I, Dr. Ruby Dalla, feel that. And so she has conspicuously not said that yet since the leadership launch. So I want you to get her on the air And if you can get her to say, I, Dr. Ruby Dalla, even once, and I don't care if you just say, I'll split the butter tarts with you and make a deal with her. But just get her to say, I, Dr. Ruby Dalla once. That's the reason, the free butter tart challenge.
Ms. Dalla, should I refer to you as doctor?
As I, Dr. Ruby Dalla? Like, I don't care how you do it. Like, you can be blatant about it during the break and just say, listen.
Is it terrible that I didn't even know Ruby Dalla was in the race? Let's be honest. It's Mark Carney and Christia Freeland. That's what we're dealing with here.
Chandra Arya.
I know.
Backed out of the race today. Did you hear that part?
I did not hear that. The part of him backing out. I heard the
we
part of him.
We hardly knew you.
Yeah, I heard the part of him saying, but why am I not allowed? How am I unfit?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, he's out of the race and he's appealing. But I'm sorry. In a race this short, I don't know that appealing does any good at all. But Ruby Dalla.
Okay.
She was kind of the Helena Georgis of the Liberal caucus back then. You know, a bit of a reputation for being self-important, putting herself ahead of team. All the parties have one of those or two of those. But it'll just be interesting to see why she's running and how long she lasts.
Okay. Ruby Dalla, I'll make a mental note and we'll see if we can get one of those liberal leadership candidate onto the show. I see what you're doing here when it comes to the early election call in Ontario, and good on you, sir, for doing it, because anybody who is twisted about this early election call surely felt the same a number of years ago when Justin Trudeau did the same thing.
Well, I'm not even going for the before. I'm going for the now. Doug Ford is bringing an election earlier than we need it for no particular reason at all other than self-benefit. Justin Trudeau is running away from an election we desperately need for his own self-benefit. And I see a lot of people mad at one or the other, but no one's able to say, hey, they're all a bunch of jerks. Same with everybody who's calling out for Pierre Poilievre's platform because he's running for prime minister. Well, you know who else is running for prime minister? Mark Carney. And he is probably going to be prime minister long before Pierre Poilievre has a chance to run for it. Where's his platform? Where are the calls for specificity from him? Like, this is just... If you want to get mad about the self-interest over here, get mad about the self-interest over there. If you want to get mad about the lack of details from this dude who wants to be prime minister, get mad at the lack of detail from the other dude who wants to be prime minister. I just want some consistency in my gripes.
So the self-interest on the part of Justin Trudeau is avoiding losing the election.
Yes.
Okay.
And... we are going through so much uncertainty with Trump right now, and all we are going to do is delay this uncertainty on our side. Well, now we're waiting for this. As much as it's a short leadership process, it didn't need to be this long. They could have gone with an interim leader in caucus, but they put party ahead of country. So we're delaying. And then they're going to get in, and whoever it is, let's assume Mark Carney or Christia Freeland, is going to be desperately hanging on for that extra week or two, as much as they can, so they can put their own stamp on the government and distance themselves from Justin Trudeau's government. So that's more of this lame duck period. So it's just all this uncertainty being extended. We are tearing the Band-Aid off as slowly as physically possible on a vanity run.
I like what you said before about our inability to refer to them as all of them as jerks, because I've been having this ongoing dialogue with somebody who I respect a ton, spent a long time in office, about what I feel to be the heightened cynicism around politics in general. And I think you get to that, or get at that, when you talk about, you know, our inability to say you're all a bunch of jerks. But David, I think it's fair to say I'm as engaged, if not more, than the next person. And I am so cynical right now, across the board.
Mm-hmm. And like I've said a million times, I think the biggest cause of cynicism is not partisanship. It's not our voting system. It's the fact that everybody is responsible for everything, which means nobody's responsible for anything. So when we have this hallway healthcare, is it federal transfers? Is it government funding from the province? Is it how the funding is allocated locally? Blah, blah, blah. Whose fault is it? Why can't we get a system-wide computer system where all the medical providers are on the same secure trafficking system, communication systems, so they can share data more easily? Like, why do we have fax machines? We can do surgery remotely, but we're using faxes. Why? And, I don't say this as a criticism of anybody. It's a criticism of everybody, because nobody and everybody is responsible for this problem. And that's the cynicism, I think, because even if you punch through at one of those levels where you think it makes a difference, well, you can't cover all the flags all the time.
David Drewe joins us every Monday morning, 11:30, for Drew's Views. The upcoming early provincial election will feature some familiar names because they're already elected, just not provincially. And what? Elon Musk with a butt? I can't wait to hear. Not that butt. David Drew's with
One
us.
T in the butt.
One T in the butt. You'll find out more as we continue. Drew's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Monday morning, 11:30, David Drewe joins us for Drew's Views. If you're looking for David, look for negotiating change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies, and of course, listen right here every Monday morning, 11:30. David spent a long time on the Hill as a former staffer with the Conservative Party of Canada. It is that time, David, where folks who are already elected to office see an opportunity that they would like to seize and decide, hey, I'm going to go for that upper level of political office.
And, sometimes people have been in office for 18 years and it's like, yeah, okay. And then sometimes they've been in for 2 months and you're like, well, wait a minute. How are you getting out this quickly? This is a different game from what we've talked about a couple times, because the elections were a while back, but the term is not over. But I got to say this, Rob Deutschmann, I don't agree with much of his politics, he knows, but I really do agree with a lot of how he does politics. He is very focused on transparency, and I love the fact that he resigned.
I do too.
He resigned to run for the next office, and I think he set a standard for that. I have small problems, but I can deal with them on a case-by-case basis of people who quit the job they signed up for on behalf of their community to pursue another opportunity on behalf of their community. And it's very easy to start looking at these people as self-serving rather than people who are motivated by the community. It's really easy to get more cynical about even the local politicians when you see them trading hats like this. It's sad, but it's case by case, and it's in the eyes of the voters. And, I think we ended up with a pretty darn good Green MPP, despite the fact that she had left City Council far too early to run for Green. And I was totally cranky about that during her campaign. But I think it kind of turned out for us. So, it's not that death knell of everything or anything, and it's really in the eye of the beholder. I hate it on principle, but like a hypocrite and the typical voter, I'm willing to forgive it when somebody I like does it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that case by case. Let's stick with this for just a moment before we talk about Elon Musk, because our mutual friend Trish is quite concerned right now because there is such a short window between the election call, which we're expecting Wednesday, and the vote on the 27th of February. Not going to work for her because of her travel schedule, and she suspects snowbirds will feel similarly. I mean, how the heck are we going to get people to the polls? What is somebody in Trish's situation to do? Advanced poll? Mail in? I don't know.
Okay, I am infinitely more familiar with the ins and outs of this federally than provincially. But I will tell you, the first day of the campaign, I vote. Because I don't have time. If I'm working a campaign, advanced polls, those are my busy days. Election day, I've got other things to do than go line up and vote. So federally, you can go into any Elections Canada office in the country and vote as soon as the writ is dropped. So I could go be in St. John's, Newfoundland, and vote in Kitchener, South Hespeler. There's the advanced polls, there's mail-in ballots, there's proxies, there's a million ways to get this done. It is not as convenient as just showing up on election day. It does require the voter to do a little bit more research into how to do it. But the good thing is, if you know who you're going to vote for, you can just call their office and say, I need help voting for you. And you better believe that office will be well prepared to help you vote for them. So, I don't need to figure it out for you. Trish, I know you well enough to think I know which office you are going to be calling for help with your vote, and they should be able to provide it for you.
All right. I'm going to give you as much leash on this one as you wish to take, because you claim that you really do not like Elon Musk.
But boy, he's been getting a rough ride. And I do not know whether he intended to do a Nazi salute or not. But when I saw it, all I could think about was if he had had a hockey stick in his hand, that would have been a post-goal celebration. There were so many ways that you could refer that and not go to the worst possible scenario. Now, I do understand he has burned the benefit of the doubt. It is perfectly fair for people to say, you know what, I think Elon Musk was doing a Nazi salute, and I'm not going to try to deconvince them. I'm not convinced, but I'm not going to sit there and say, no, I know his heart. He would not do that. I don't know. But just all the people who I saw getting so upset about this. So I posted the picture of 4 Democrats holding their hands in similar positions, and a lot of people got really, really mad at me. But none of them had got mad about actual Jewish schools being shot up. And this is where I'm getting frustrated with the anger at Elon Musk. It's some dude in the U.S. who made a hand gesture and you're reading into his mind. But where was the anger when these actual anti-Semitic events are occurring in Canada? Actual violence. We're not upset about that. But because he's a rich tech bro and a dick, I can say that on the radio, right?
You can.
Okay, so he's a huge dick.
Richard.
A huge Richard. And, maybe not. Sure, get mad at him. But give the outrage for the real stuff. We have had so much occurring in our country, in our neighborhoods in the past while that we could have got angry at, but we saved it up for Elon Musk for some reason. And it's I can understand you being mad at that, but it comes across as a little bit more virtue signaling when you're not as angry about bullets flying in Toronto. So I hate Elon Musk, but he's just being used as an excuse for our worst feelings right now.
You could find a lot of other things to be angry at him for, and I think your point is excellent. Where is our outrage? Perhaps where it is more deserved. David, as always, great to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
David Drewe owns Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies, joins us every Monday morning, 11:30, for Drew's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Here's a question for you. I mean, look, I like my beer as much as the next person, maybe even more. And frankly, I'm 100% okay with it being more readily available in corner stores, grocery stores, etc. But what was the all-fired hurry in all of this? And why is it costing the provincial government, or why is it costing us, please and thank you, more than $600 million to speed it up? Why didn't we just wait? Why did we have to waste more money? This is one of the things that I know frustrates you as much as it frustrates me. And it's also not lost on me that the provincial budget watchdog comes out with this report, and the $600 million, I will use the word wasted, just as we are about to embark on a provincial election. So on the one hand, you get those $200 rebate checks in the mail. On the other hand, $600 million was just poured down the drain in order to accelerate the process of getting alcohol into convenience stores and elsewhere. Maybe that's something you want to talk about in the next hour. Whatever it is that's on your mind, you can express it during our Talkback Hour every day from noon until 1. This being a Monday, it is your rant or rave edition of the Talkback Hour. Rant because you're upset about something, rave because you're happy about it, whatever it may be. Give us a call. Open lines coming your way the next hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
In fact, you are encouraged to talk back during this hour every day from noon until 1. And let me just let you in on a little something here, because the door is always open. We pull back the curtains of transparency on this show and make sure you can see and hear everything. I'm going to be gone, traveling the highways and byways of Northern Ontario and Michigan for the next several days with the Kitchener Rangers. We've got a long road trip ahead of us. And so it turns out that today is my only day in this chair, which means it's my only day to have conversations with you this week. And I promise you, when I'm away on Saturday and Sunday, I miss this. I love the energy that comes from it. I love the things I learn. I love the conversations we get to have. So if you want to make the most of it, if you want to give me a little treat, let's get into it today on Rant or Rave, okay? Because it's my only chance to hear from you this week before I embark on that road trip. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Let's start with Andre. Good afternoon, Andre.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. Great segment with 11 o'clock with 101 years old survivor.
Yes, Mr. John New, who has been awarded France's Legion of Honor, the highest award for merit that the country offers. And he's right here in Kitchener, 101 years old.
Did he sound good, eh?
He sounded great. He looked fantastic. What an inspiration.
So two things I really like is to keep breathing. I use that since I survived from my concussion. And
yeah,
two,
that's what he said was the secret to a long life. Keep breathing.
Yeah. And then also reading. So David Drewe, I guess he's gonna live long because he likes to read. So I got two rave, Mike. I'm gonna be quick for others because So the first one is the Kitchener Rangers. I said they're gonna get 8 points. Out of 8 points on the road, I think they're gonna get 5. They won this weekend, so that's 2, right?
That's 2. Okay.
Okay.
And then next?
Pardon me? Yeah, my other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot, so it's not important.
Okay. Andre forgot, so it's not important. Yes, the game on Saturday in Erie was the Rangers' first of 5 in a row on the road. Wednesday, Sault Ste. Marie. Friday, Flint, Michigan. Saturday, Saginaw, Michigan. And then the following Tuesday, some city down the 401 west of here. I don't like the city at all. I don't know how anybody lives there. Anyway, that's what's coming up on the road for the Kitchener Rangers. And yes, our 101-year-old war veteran said, keep breathing and read. Keep your mind active. That's how you live a long life. Tom, you're on the Talkback Hour. Rant or rave?
Yeah, it's a rant, Mike. I listened to your show on Friday, and I listened to Mr. McLeod talk about his situation and circumstances. And,
the Till Death Do Us Part, spousal reunification.
Yeah, and I don't really want to take up too much time, but I did call my MPP, which is Brian Rydell. I was not overly impressed at how he explained the situation and how he sort of made Catherine's wife, Bill, was grandstanding. And it just sort of makes me wonder, his excuse, well, how many committees this has to go through, and his wife is going to need more care than people knowing that. Meanwhile, this election is going to cost us $175 million. We've got a highway that's going to relieve it costs a 30-minute short drive down that 400. We don't know how traffic is going to be in the next 5 years, if it's going to be built in the next 5 years. And now we've got an expenditure over $600 million that it costs to expedite to have beer and liquor sold in convenience stores. So I'm asking everyone to call their local MP and even call Mr. Ford's office, seeing he's supposed to listen to the people. And let's help Mr. McLeod at least spend the last few years with his wife and give him the peace of mind that this is being done, because I'm really appalled about how this is being done. Mr. Waddell and I talked about other subjects, and again, some of the reasoning and some of the things he said behind this was just sort of, so we've got a solar plant in Guelph that can make solar panels, but you're going to use the excuse, we're trying to build solar panels. They don't really last this long, and I don't want to support the Chinese economy. Meanwhile, we could cut the energy cost here in Ontario by putting solar panels on affordable housing or social housing, which would help a great deal. So,
all right, Tom, I get where you're coming from. We're getting away from spousal reunification there. I think what Tom is saying is if you didn't do this, that, or the other thing, you could spend more time and energy on spousal reunification. I also find it fascinating with this election. First number I heard was 160. Then it was 170. Now it's $175 million. The cost is going up. We haven't even started the campaign yet. Paul, rant or rave, good afternoon.
First off, with today's technology, there's no reason that you can't continue your
Stop it. Don't give anybody any ideas, please. You are a scoundrel.
I'll be suffering from withdrawal. Listen, I just want to clarify. You disagree with having an early provincial election, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, what about at the federal level? Should we hold off until October to have a federal election here in Canada with the conditions that Canada is currently in? Would you?
Well, hang on,
it is a fixed election date.
No, but it's a minority parliament. It can fall on a vote of non-confidence anytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would disagree with the Conservatives, NDP, and Bloc pulling down the?
No, I wouldn't, because that's different. Doug Ford has a majority. There's no threat of his government falling. If the minority parliament falls, it falls.
So
end of story.
Do we have fixed election dates or non-fixed election
We
dates?
should have fixed election dates, but if we elect minority parliaments, then what are we going to do about it?
So then the Liberals should have the right to govern until next October.
All right, if that's what you want, Paul, I'll grant it to you.
I'm asking you.
I just told you.
Just because it's a minority government.
Well, that's the beauty of minorities.
Why doesn't the minority Liberal government work with the other parties then, instead of trying to ram through unpopular policies?
Who are they unpopular with? The other parties? Why don't the other parties work with the minority Liberals?
All of Canada, they're unpopular.
Well, okay. Like, look at you go with all of Canada. Look, I'm not saying I love the current federal government. All I'm saying is I do like fixed election dates. I don't like early elections called for political opportunity. If we have a minority parliament, what I love about it is the check and balance, the back and forth that happens in order to remain in power. And if you lose the confidence, then we go to the polls. It's Rant or Rave, the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Busy show for busy people. Busy phone lines during our Talkback Hour. Rant or Rave on this Monday. We continue with Bob. Good afternoon, Bob.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Bob.
How are you, sir?
Good, thanks.
That's good. Can you imagine all this money that's being spent on an early election, and the money that was spent to extra liquor and beer in the corner stores was spent on senior care and senior homes, and it might make a little bit of a difference in the care they have?
So the $600 million to accelerate the sale of alcohol, the $160 to $175 million So let's just say $600 or $770 million. You want that spent in long-term care?
And home care, yeah.
Yeah.
Might make it look more, help the province a little bit more.
Sorry, I didn't catch that last part, Bob.
So it might help the province a little bit more.
It might help the province more than those other things. I hear you. And listen, we talk about competing priorities all the time. And oftentimes we do have a different idea of what is priority than our government leaders do. Mary, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Wow. And Andre stole my thunder. Did I ever enjoy that interview with that veteran?
Oh, so did I. It was so nice to have him here.
Yeah, and he's 101, so articulate.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
His head is screwed on really good.
It sure is.
And he's still got a wife.
Yeah, yes, he does. He does.
No, it was the second one, but
That's right.
Keeps him going. Anyway,
Okay.
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. I was mesmerized. Also, what do you think with Ford? I almost said Trump. Ford calling an early election. Do you think there'd be anything that people are feeling and thinking that might turn around and bite them in the bum?
That's a good question, Mary. And I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't think there's going to be great turnout for this election, considering the timing of it. I don't know that there's a great appetite for elections, period, when so many of us are just out there trying to get that paycheck and put the roast beef and mashed potatoes on the table. So if there is, the opposition parties are going to have to do a very good job of making that the narrative, because right now Doug Ford holds all of those cards. He's pulling the strings on this particular campaign that's about to begin. Mark, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Mike, you missed out on your first prediction for 2025.
No, not my first one, but you're right. I did predict the Buffalo Bills would win the Super Bowl, and I was wrong.
And you know what? I was wrong too, Mike.
You thought they were going to win too?
I took them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I don't know what it is about Buffalo, but I'm starting to think, Mark, that if the Bills won, we would know what to do with ourselves. Just like when the Leafs eventually win. What are we going to do when that happens? We always love the losers. And Buffalo is a much more lovable loser. Yes.
One more thing, Mike.
Yes.
Safe trip on the road. You and the Rangers and your driver there, Mike the Moose. Have a great trip, and go Rangers, go.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're looking forward to it, at least insofar as we've got the right guy at the wheel, and there's some great hockey to be played. I love my visits to Sault Ste. Marie, and then we'll go to Flint and Saginaw, and we'll hope for the best for the Rangers. Peter, you're on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Hey, happy Monday. How's it going?
You too. Thanks.
I just wanted to say that that veteran was really awesome. Was his name Alistair McDonald?
His name was John New.
Oh, there's another 101-year-old vet, I think. Okay, sorry, I got the two confused.
That's
Anyways,
okay.
It was really nice hearing him. He was so what's the word? Modest, I guess.
Very much so, yeah.
And saying I have mixed feelings about this, and then talking about how bad the war is really, and then. I like that he brought up the certain war that's going on right now in Gaza and Israel right now, too. And the fact that he said that what Israel is doing is wrong and unacceptable were the words he used. And I just wanted to ask you, have you heard the name Hind Rajab?
I have not.
Okay, so real quick, the story of Hind Rajab is she was fleeing with her family from northern Gaza to a safe point. When they were cornered by a tank, the tank shot 300 rounds into the family car. Hind was the last one left. She was on the phone with Red Cross, so this conversation is actually recorded, so you can look it up. It's tragic. The Army knew that there was a family in the car, and they shot 300 rounds into the car. Anyways, there's something called the Hind Rajab Foundation now, where they have taken and compiled all the clips posted by the IDF and onto social media, and they're putting it together, to prosecute war crimes and whatnot.
All right, Peter. Well, I will look that up and learn more. As I said at the beginning of this hour, I learn something every day talking to you on this show. Thank you very much for that. As we continue Rant or Rave on the Mike Farwell Show, this is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour is all about giving you the chance to talk back. Let's hear what's on your mind. A rant or a rave on a Monday afternoon. Jersey Bill. Good day, sir.
Hey, I'm toll-free Jersey Bill today, using my wife's Rogers phone, which is the only one that lets me do it. So, listen, I just want to have a rave about where I was this weekend. I was at the Niagara board game weekend, about 200 people doing this social activity. I wasn't able to get into a lot of games myself, actually, but I did make a lot of contacts. I'm going to be able to increase my ability to be in this hobby because the people are very, very friendly, and especially the ones playing war games, which was my interest. They're not warmongers, but they like this idea of doing strategy, going over historical things, and there were also a lot of what's called Euro games, which are they deal with building up different cities and such. But it was just amazing to see 200 people involved in this kind of activity away from screens and just enjoying themselves in each other's company.
What is your game of choice, Billy?
Well, as I say, I've been trying to get into these different games. There's one. There's a Canadian designer who's come out with War for America, which has a kind of interesting take on the American Revolution. I also met a really interesting Canadian game designer. His name is Art. Now I'm drawing blank there. Art Lupinacci, yeah, got it. And he's done a tremendous rendering of course the horrible East Front of the Second World War, thinking of people involved with that war. But the way he did it is just so fantastic in terms of supply problems and transportation problems that are involved with that. And that's it. That level of complexity, it's like chess on steroids. And our Lupinacci is a very interesting guy. He actually was one of the main organizers of this event. And I'll have a chance to meet him again because there's a man named David Bloomberg runs a one-day wargaming event, which I'm hoping to attend in Vaughan. So this is really an interesting sidelight. I was able to meet a lot of Ontario guys who did it, and also some folks from Michigan and also from New York, upper New York State. So I was in my element there.
I'm glad to hear it. It sounds great, and I love your philosophy on it, being away from screens and with people. What a great idea. And in case you didn't know, board games, Trivial Pursuit, the creator, Canadian of course, owns the North Bay Battalion in the Ontario Hockey League. It's Rant or Rave on your Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour is pretty simple. You call and talk back. We listen. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Let's get right back to the phones on this Rant or Rave Monday. Francis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I just had a good talking to you since you're going to be gone the rest of the week. I have a good word for Captain Doug Ford. How if he changes his mind at the last minute, he still hasn't announced that he would get a majority vote again if he just waited and saved the country a lot of money.
All right, Francis. Well, good to hear from you today. You enjoy the rest of your week, okay?
You too.
Thank you, sir. Great to hear from you. Save the money. Don't go to the polls. Grant, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mike. Did you watch, Fifth Estate? They're talking about, they look like a square bandage that has some kind of medical solution on it, and it's made somewhere in the States, and they've applied it to so many people, and the stuff that's on this bandage thing has created so much health problems with people. I'm not too sure what the
I missed that episode of Fifth Estate, but I got to tell you, Grant, I had to chuckle because you usually catch me on Mondays asking me if I saw 60 Minutes the night before. So this is a curveball for me, but I didn't see that particular episode of Fifth Estate. No.
Yeah, I'm curious of what the solution that's on this, because it almost sounded like it was creating a lot of. Yeah, they also mentioned, they said it could cause death.
Well, and if it's something that's supposed to be helpful in the medical community, we certainly wouldn't want it causing that, would we? What I find curious is Grant's insistence on not just watching the show, but then calling in to talk about having watched it. But there you go. And listen, I will also credit Grant again where I have before. I love how engaged he is in news programs and learning what's going on with various things. Usually it's 60 Minutes. Today it's Fifth Estate. Zoltan, the Magnificent, over to you.
Mike, you are one heck of a guy, let me tell you. The only reason I watch Rangers hockey is to hear your voice, all right?
All right.
All right. Look, there was a song many, many, many years ago in the United States of America, and it played, well, and then it hit the bar scene, and they just for years played it. So today I heard that there was wins and a whiteout in Canada. So why can't we make the song that was American a Canadian song? And the American song was Wipeout. So in Canada, they could say, whiteout!
Zoltan, you are such a beauty. Wipeout's a great song, by the way. And why not? Instead of Wipeout, we will make it Whiteout. I will not tell a lie. When I heard this morning the forecast for the day ahead, I asked myself, are they going to do it? Are they going to cancel school transportation because, it's going to be windy and white later? Fortunately, they got the buses running this morning and anticipate, they will have them picking the kids up this afternoon. But it did cross my mind. And I do hope, Zoltan, when you watch Kitchener Rangers hockey, only to hear my voice, you mean that you turn the volume down on the TV and then turn up the volume on your radio or smart speaker. And I only say that because I wouldn't want to take credit away from Jason Hagholm where it's due. And Jason Hagholm is the one that calls the games on Rogers TV. Paul Fixter and I do the games on 570 News Radio, and you can absolutely choose if you want to turn down the volume on one and up on the other. What I really enjoy about Paul being on our broadcasts is what he's able to bring by way of connection to the hockey community and his personal connections. We get some great content for our intermissions, and Paul can provide really strong analysis. And I do my best to get the he shoots, he scores stuff right. But you'll be able to keep up with Paul and I on the road this week. It's a Wednesday night game in Sault Ste. Marie. It's a Friday night game in Flint. How weird is that going to be? No Friday night hockey in Kitchener this week. That's just strange. We'll be in Flint, though, and then Saturday in Saginaw before we make our way back home. I want to go to an email I received from Shelley to Mike at 570news.com under the subject line, snow clearing. You know how much I love this subject line. Hi, Mike, Shelley writes, I took a walk this morning through Victoria Park. Beautiful area at all times of the year, but my rant is there are a lot of sidewalks into and out of the park that are not cleared of ice and snow, Schneider Ave being one of them. Come on, people, you have had lots of time to shovel and salt, and people with mobility issues also need a nice, clean path. Thanks, Shelley. Shelley, from your lips to our inbox, and hopefully directly to bylaw at the City of Kitchener, because we know that if you don't clear within 24 hours, the city can come and clear it for you, and maybe they'll leave you a little bill behind for that, right? I also want to share this email from Jackie to Mike at 570news.com. Mike, I remember how you used to say that the GRT/Ion system was a great alternative to driving, and I would like to challenge that. I've been without a vehicle for over a year now, and I have to say that using the regional transit system has been a struggle, to say the least. An example from today is the Blockline station. What kind of public transportation station is built on a hill, which is a wind tunnel, without a wind barrier and with a narrow glass enclosure that holds about 5 people with proper physical distancing to keep them warm while they wait for the next train? Also, the 201 Express bus that takes folks home from the Blockline station has no protection from the elements. I could go on and on about the challenges of taking public transit in this region, Mike. The payment system is another issue. And I confess, and Jackie reminded me, I have taken and extolled the virtues of having taken transit in the past when my car's in the shop or whatever. It's pretty easy for me. Short walk from the house to the bus stop and a straight shot on the bus, and it's an express that comes directly to the boardwalk. It still takes longer than I would like it to take, but it's pretty darn convenient. That was my experience. Jackie's experience is much different. So Jackie's got concerns with transit. Shelley's got concerns with snow clearing on our sidewalks. If you have any concerns, get them off your chest and onto the air right here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Right back to the phones. It is your Talkback Hour today. Rant or rave. Steve, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How's it going, bud?
Good, thanks. How about you?
Good, man.
Good.
Not too bad. I'm a little perturbed. I see this station. I love your show. I drive all day. I listen to the afternoon show, and it's just a bunch of Facebook zombies are repeating what Donald Trump says and what every other right-winger says. But I think it's just a little bit gross that this morning you had that beautiful 100-year-old veteran on, John New, was it?
Yes.
Talking about the horrors of Auschwitz and Dachau and all these places and his PTSD because of that. And then you had a real smart guy there, David Drewe, on, who was supposed to be hyper-intelligent and, all-knowing and everything. And he starts talking about this Elon Musk and how, I don't know if it was really a Nazi salute. Have you looked at all the people, he bought this Twitter and turned it into X or whatever, like he named his child X. And he's been propping up right-wing Nazis and unknown neo-Nazis all around the world for a long time here now. And was it any coincidence that he gave like $250 million to that orange-painted fascist down south? I've seen, independent. I watch a lot of independent news that isn't owned by corporate interests. And I've seen that same post that he reposted with these 4 Democrats that were supposedly making the same salute that Elon Musk was. And they were, if you watch the videos of those, all 4 of them, they were waving to the crowd at their events. Maybe he should do a little bit more research. Look at the AfD in Germany, they're the only hope. They're the new Nazi party in Germany. Maybe the all-knowing David Drewe should do a little more research before he becomes on the radio and start spreading the same garbage that son of South African earth-raping miners has been spreading. Thanks, Mike. You're the best. Have a good one, brother.
All right, Steve. That's ending with a bang for sure. David did acknowledge that when he posted the picture. Not everybody liked it, and you certainly don't have to. That is for sure. Dylan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I just got a rave about the weather. I know it's a bit of a pain shoveling and freshening off cars and whatnot, but as a snowmobile enthusiast, this is the first year in a number of years that I have been able to hop on an open trail within about 5 kilometers of the city and travel hundreds of kilometers of groomed snowmobile trails here in southwestern Ontario. I'm hoping that the temps stay below zero for a month and a half, 2 months to come, so we don't lose our base. It's been a great year so far, and looking forward to more.
Glad to hear it, Dylan. Appreciate the call, and I think of you sometimes, those of you who are winter enthusiasts, and I say sometimes because you know that I'm not. So I'll give you the heads up because I check in with my buddy Cooney from Environment Canada, and I'm like, you got to give me a break from this, Cooney. Like every day, a little bit more snow, a little bit more snow. He said he sees some brief thaws coming in the early part of February. So watch yourself. I don't think it's going to impact your base too much, though, Dylan. I think we have one of those winters, and I'm happy that you get to enjoy it. I enjoy days like today. It's sunny. I can handle it. The snow can be turned off for a little bit of time, and I don't mind, in and around -5 or so, bundle up, take Rosie the pandemic pup for a walk this afternoon. It'll be great. But I'm not as enthusiastic as you are, but I'm glad you're able to enjoy it. It reminds me of the weekend when we were in Erie with the Kitchener Rangers, and the hotel we stay at is right on the water. There had to be 100 or more. Dozens for sure, but I'll bet you it numbered more than 100 tents, huts out there on the water for ice fishing. I'll tell you, yeah, we are getting a good old-fashioned winter, aren't we? And it gives you the opportunity to enjoy those outdoor winter activities. But you should have seen all the ice fishing tents and huts out there on the water, just taking full advantage of what Mother Nature brought them. Terry, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. Happy New Year to you.
And to you.
First time calling this year. Listen, don't feel too bad on your predictions. I had the Niners and the Ravens in the Super Bowl, so I'm way off, way worse than you anyway. But that's not what I'm calling. Doug Ford, I think I know why he's calling this early election. It's because he knows that a conservative government's coming in later this year federally, and he's afraid that in a year and a half, in case people don't take a shine to it, it might affect his status. But I'll tell you what, I like Doug Ford. He's very popular. I mean, almost as popular as you, Mike. But listen, I think, listen, he speaks the language of the common man. I mean, during that pandemic, he went up there every day when people were running around, in panic with their, like chickens with its head cut off. And he was that calming influence. I mean, he's like us. I mean, he's not an educated man. I think high school is the highest thing that he got in terms of education. I mean, I think he went to Humber, but he dropped out. But anyway, no, I like that. I didn't like him at first. I thought, not another. I know Liberal Bob's going to break out in highs when I say this, but no, I think he's very popular, and I think he's going to win another massive majority. And if I did vote, I don't, because of I'm not a fan of the electoral system we have, but I would definitely vote for his party. 100%. Anyway, Mike, enjoy your trip, and we'll catch you again.
Thanks, Terry. Good to hear from you today. I think it's pretty obvious that this election is being called so that Doug Ford can do just that, what Terry says he thinks Doug Ford will do, and that is win another massive majority. I don't know how massive it will be. Governments tend, and leaders, no matter how popular, tend to have a shelf life, but I don't think Doug Ford has reached his expiration date yet. And yes, while the Liberals still have a leader without a seat at Queen's Park, and they're trying to figure some things out, and the NDP is almost established itself as the official opposition. It hasn't been close to forming government in quite some time. Probably a good time for Doug Ford to strike and see if he can get another 4 years added to his mandate instead of waiting 18 months, and who knows what the political winds or which way the political winds will be blowing by that time. This is Rant or Rave, your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour for this Monday on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our 1 o'clock update, and then Rob Snow, and Now You Know, taking you through until 3. We still have time together on our Talkback Hour. Ernie, good afternoon.
Mike, what a fantastic segment with that veteran. That was awesome.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed the opportunity to have John New in here today, 101 years old, and just awarded France's highest award for merit, which is the Legion of Honor Medal.
I feel we could have had him on for like an hour at least. But thank you for having that. That was great. It was just a great thing about humanity too, and the way he spoke, and some of those really difficult. You can't even imagine what he went through with some of those experiences he had, and just going through that. And I was thinking about some of the messages he was given about what he experienced and what's kind of going on. I remember a message from my dad that he would repeat. Especially with when we were interacting with different races, he would always say to me, he's like, there's good and bad in every race. The race isn't the bad. There's good and bad in everything. So you just have to figure out who's the good and who's the bad. And he would repeat that all the time. And it just made it very evident to me that, again, color doesn't matter. It is what it is. And my rant, Mike, who wants to see that Super Bowl? It's the wrong bird in the Super Bowl. Who wants to see that again, Mike?
Oh, your Ravens colors are showing, Ernie. Even I can get behind the chance at something historic.
Come on. Like, I was rooting for the Bills, too, as much as it was hurting because they, obviously they beat us. But Like, nobody wants to see that. But have a great road trip. Have a good time, and thanks.
Thanks, buddy. Good to hear from you today. I am kind of looking forward to the opportunity to witness some history. 3 straight Super Bowls the Kansas City Chiefs could win. Why not? At least it's a storyline to get behind. And that's coming from a Steelers fan. And yes, going back to John New, who joined us this morning at 10:30, 101 years old. And I'll tell you what, full of vim, full of vigor, very articulate, on the ball, gave me a thumbs up through the studio window as he was on his way out. Absolutely loved it. If you missed it, you can always find it online with our podcast. I recommend the Seeker app, SEEKR, to find all of your audio from this show and everything else you like to listen to. Use the Seeker app. You'll be just fine. Larry Fedoruk will be filling in for the next 4 days here on the show as I make that road trip with the Rangers, and you can catch every game with Paul Fixter and I from Sault Ste. Marie, from Flint, and from Saginaw. Devin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.